afternoon and welcome. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome everybody here today for the celebration of life for James Archibald Smith, Jim Smith, or Mr. Smith for some of us who are so fortunate to have him as a teacher. I know that he encouraged me to be quiet on many occasions, and then today I have to speak out loud, so it seems to be a sense of accomplishment for me. I would ask if you have a cell phone or PDA, if you could turn your ringer off for our service. And following our service today, we're going to have a time of fellowship and refreshment, a time to share some memories, and hopefully create some new ones, keeping Jim close to our hearts. At this time, I'm going to invite Gerda to come forward to share some thoughts and memories.
Wow, so nice to see you all. Everyone here has special connections to Jim. My special connection is I was his wife for 54 years and a mother to our two wonderful children, Sabrina and Allison. We met in geography class in Dunville High School. We were constantly talking. We really liked each other. When I met Jim, he was involved with scouts, loved canoeing and camping. His family came from Scotland in 1956. His dog, a Cairn Terrier, who smiled a lot, and called Heather, came with Jim. His love of dogs stayed with him all of his life. He worked at Lundy's Fence in the summer, and then worked in the Bank of Montreal for 1 year. That was enough. Jim and I went to Teachers College in 1968. It's a long time ago. In 1969, we were married and started our teaching career. Jim taught in the public school system for 32 years and got his Master's of Education along the way. He was known as Big Jim in the schools that he taught in. He encouraged his students to build bluebird and tree swallow boxes and put them up around the area. Jim wanted to leave his students knowing more about the natural world of birds and what they needed to thrive. Jim had many skills. He built our backyard gazebo, outdoor furniture, a variety of decks, the bird banding building at Rock Point, and of course, a variety of aviaries for his birds. He loved having projects and planning what could he do next. Dave and Joe and their daughters, Erin and Heather, had many good times with our family. Through the years, we have shared many happy and sad moments. Throughout our married life, our road trips consisted of a pair of binoculars and a bird book. It didn't matter where we were going or what country we were in. Making up a bird list was a must. His passion for birds was contagious. His family, friends, trainees at the bird banding station usually caught his enthusiasm. Jim enjoyed having and keeping tropical birds, mainly from Australia. In order to keep them, he built aviaries in our apartment, our new home, outside our home, and filled them with a variety of Australian finches. He even built one in his classroom when he first started teaching. Needless to say, I learned a lot about tropical birds. Jim enjoyed being a hobby farmer. At some point, he owned 2 horses, a pot-bellied pig, a variety of poultry, pigeons, doves, and an attack peacock. He wanted a donkey, but I said no. The conversation of Jim wanting a donkey went on for years. It became a family joke. Andrew and Caroline were always close to Jim. No matter the ups and downs of their lives, they would come for a visit and share whatever was bothering them. On January 2006, Andrew donated his kidney to his brother, which Jim was always thankful for. The kidney served him well for 17 years and gave him a really, really good quality of life. Jim was very single-minded when it came to creating Rock Point bird banding station. It became a vision for him to train himself and other people as banders. Jim was trained by John Miles and also went to San Francisco to be be trained by Peter Pyle, who wrote a very well-known book called Identification Guide to North American Birds. Jim was a master bander for 16 years. At Rock Point Banding Station, he was a wonderful teacher for so many people there and abroad. Jim and I will miss you watching birds out of the window, Jim. I will miss you cuddling the dogs in the evening, being able to sit with you and have a cup of coffee. Sometimes we forget it's the simple everyday events you miss the most. Jim, I am grateful for the years we spent together. Light as snow, your soul is flying across the sky like a bird, following the guiding light of love of those that have gone before you. You are home. I love you, Jim.
Hi everyone, thank you for coming, celebrating his life. I'm Caroline, I'm his baby sister. Jim was the oldest of 3 Smith kids. When I was 16, our father passed. At that time, Jim became more of a confidant, mentor, and advisor to myself. I always went to him with any of my problems or emotional needs. He was always there with an open mind and words of wisdom. Let's rejoice in the fact that when you love someone with your whole life, they will surround you in their love forever. It is not a day to mourn his passing, but to celebrate a life well lived and shared with others. We all have our fond memories, and I would ask that you take a minute to reflect on what and how he touched your life. Jim struggled with illness in the last year especially, and I, for one, am glad that struggle is over. I will always be your little sister and you my big brother. As we try to negotiate without you, we are never far from our thoughts. Till we meet again.
Well, I am the kidney donor. And I was so stressed out before I donated the kidney. I was losing my hair. And I said to the doctor, well, he said to me, you're under stress. And I said, no, I don't think so. But my hair was falling out. And after I donated the kidney, a few days later, I went to Jim's room, and I couldn't believe how good he looked, because he was on dialysis before that, and I never looked back. I was so grateful that I could give him 16, 17 years of life, because if he had the choice, he would have stopped the dialysis, because it was 3 times a week or whatever it was. And I haven't missed a beat. I have been a healthy person. I could walk from here to the other side of Dunville even today, which is amazing that you can do that with one kidney. And Jim was my sparring partner when we were growing up in the younger days. He would tease me so bad, and we would fight and stuff like that, but today, you know, like, we are so close as a family, as Caroline said. And I don't want to ramble along and that I didn't prepare anything. I'm not a public speaker, but thank you for coming, and I'm sorry I wasn't in Jim's circle with birds. I couldn't care less about them. And the only kind of bird I wanted was at the end of a rifle barrel. So it didn't go very well between Jim and I. So, and I didn't go to the banding station other than to help him build something at the odd time. But thank you again for coming, and we do appreciate it as a family. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm David Millen. As Jim's dear friend, I appreciate this opportunity to acknowledge and express my love and gratitude for Jim and the lifelong friendship that he and I have shared for over 5 decades. It's been 57 years since my brother Malcolm introduced me to Jim while we were getting lunch in the Dunville High School cafeteria. Such a long friendship is rare. Because it is rare, it's very special. Now, with the passage of time, I've more frequently reflected on how unique our friendship is, and why our friendship is a true blessing. I've come to recognize some of those threads of friendship which have led us to being like brothers. Our initial bonds of friendship developed from our shared immigrant challenges and similarities. He is a 9-year-old Scot from Torrance, and me as a 12-year-old from Cleveland, Yorkshire in England. Both of us had Scottish fathers from Glasgow, which led us to compare, to understand, and to laugh about the similarities and differences in our childhoods, and some daily expressions we used. His use of the words sandwich or sandwich still makes me raise an eyebrow and smile. Because of these early interactions, we quickly related to each other, and soon our wives developed their own deep friendships while reinforcing ours. Rapidly, we were able to create one strong unit together. Time marched on from those early days of secondary school and teachers' college. We let down our guard, and we sought our identities as young adults. As newlyweds and unseasoned teachers, we both were in need of a friend we could count on to show up and be there through life's biggest challenges. Jim was always there, most importantly for me, as a non-judgmental sounding board and a moral support. It was not happenstance that our bond was to develop so strongly. To be a friend required that we risked being a friend. Expectations for each other in all situations were kept in check, while at the same time always wanting the best for each other. A healthy environment was nurtured for self-esteem and self-confidence. And you can imagine getting our small group of 4 teachers in a room and what would happen to the topics of discussion. Invariably, they centered around our week's school happenings, our aspirations, our goals, our concerns, and then diverge into topics of interest at the time. We figured out how to solidify our bond of friendship and fit into each other's lives as changes and transitions took place. 2 transitions worthy of note for Jim, you've already heard of one, was that he learned that banking was not for him. Secondly, he had found his niche was to be teaching. He loved it. He pivoted from acquiring those final qualifications to become a certified clinical psychologist while full-time teaching to receiving his master's degree in education, all of it being done during part-time studies. Teaching allowed him to foster his sense of creativity. He wrote voraciously huge science fiction novels that were, to me, good doorstoppers. Just not for me. For amusement, he wrote short stories. This interest and skill in creative writing and research, I would think, influenced or encouraged Ali and Sabrina as they developed their own creative and research skills in their graduate studies. Jim's professional creativity and curiosity were most evident in his planning daily classroom activities and in the results of his committee's 3-year task of developing the county's math curriculum for grade 4 to 6, the junior grades. And outside of the school setting, his true passion was to educate others and to protect and love nature and the environment. And this was all endlessly supported by Gerda. Retirement meant refinement. He refocused his entire energies to fulfilling his major goals in the field of birding. Spending time with Jim in the early months of constructing and organizing his successful Rock Point Banding Station were days of self-fulfillment and contentment. Over time, the station itself blossomed into a very comfortable, warm, productive space equipped with solar power. For me, those early days were busy days of immersion in birding and days of self-deprecation and humor. I believed that if I was to be helpful to Jim, I had to learn so much very quickly, and I did. I thoroughly enjoyed our shared experiences and our time spent together. While I probably challenged his patience at times, he never failed to be kind and patient with me and others, no matter what our skill levels. His sense of humor made challenges lighter. I was not his best student, but I learned to acquire skills of identification, bird extraction from those large mist nets, aging, sexing, and recording information for him. Daily census walks accounting bird species was always exciting. You can still see him joyfully laughing at my early wild identification of specimens that were always, to me, just a big black bird. As I saw them flying over the tree line or across the lake shore. Experienced birders whom I've come to know quite well from Rock Point would have probably laughed at this. Sitting hunched over a picnic table ready to reveal what I considered was our next wonderful find brought both of us such joy as I improved my identification. Unfortunately, the Rock Point station is now closed after 16 years of operation. It became one of the most active stations along the north shores of Lake Ontario and Lake Erie. In large part, it became so because of its volunteers. And it's nice to see so many of you here today. Jim sincerely loved his happy band of faithful volunteers, some of whom had been with him from the inception of the station to its closing. The congeniality, the sense of purpose, the joy in learning and doing together, and the deep friendships that were developed were most meaningful to him. He welcomed to his station seasoned trained ornithologists from Europe, UK, Ireland, and the US. He loved mentoring school-aged children from the area, the younger visitors from local schools who showed great interest and promise, probably reminded him of himself at that age. It can't be underestimated how much his knowledge and presence at conferences was sought out by experts from places like Miller's Woods, San Francisco Bay Observatory, Slave Lake Burial Center for Birds in northern Alberta, and birding stations in the Shetland and Hebrides Islands. His work was shared with Ottawa and the Lab of Ornithology at Cornell University in Ithaca, New York. He was the founder and president of the World Wide Web Canadian Dove Association. And that association has over 3,000 worldwide members. The American Dove Association of Sparta, Georgia, followed his writings and have sent their heartfelt condolences. One last insight, Jim loved woodworking projects and the toys he had then had to acquire, such as a table saw and drill press in order to complete the task. He was not afraid of failed project attempts and stressed learning by doing. This was all well and good, but plans were not always committed to paper, and he just whirled with the punches. I admired his learning philosophy in tackling a new job, although I was a bit hesitant to begin a project that I knew I could not complete to my satisfaction. His aviaries were numerous and well built, especially the one in his backyard near the pool. This aviary was shingled, heated, and hexagonal. Should have seen us try to put on the shingles. As you heard, it housed his Australian finches. He'd come a long way from the days when he was tasked with taking a tree down in the backyard of his parents' home. It was during the days of projects with no plans. Let's just start was how he operated. Imagine 4 people hanging onto the end of a rope, ready to direct the fallen trunk to its resting place. The yellow timber rings out as all are yanked high into the air. All are deposited in a tangle of arms and legs as the treetop thumps to the ground. Even today, after decades, the image of the Laughing Caroline is still firmly embedded in my memory. It was definitely not our finest hour. Yet indeed, Jim had come a long way in planning and execution since those early days. As you can see, there are many reasons I'm honored to celebrate Jim and share some of his life stories. I love and appreciate Jim for so many things. Joanne, Erin, Heather, and I have been truly blessed. I'll conclude with a thought shared by my family. When I look upon my life, what matters in the end is that I was really lucky to have one true and faithful friend. For your love, your support, and friendship, Jim, I say thank you. Rest in peace. Be missed.
First, I would like to thank everyone for coming to this celebration of life. I would like to thank John Hart's Funeral Home for all of their assistance and Deb's Cuisine for the wonderful food. Thank you also to all the family and friends that have helped or reached out during this hard time. Coming back from the animal auction, we packed the Red Dynasty to the gills. Dad and Mom in the front seat, Allie, Aunt Agnes, 3 geese, and myself with a baby pot-bellied pig on my lap. The geese had their heads out, and the honking was so loud that we all had some form of hearing loss. Every time we stopped at a traffic light, the geese all started honking, and with the windows open for ventilation, we were getting quite a few startled looks. This exciting trip home with unplanned purchases was a small example of what it was like to be the daughter of James Jim Smith. Growing up in this house meant that there were impromptu trips to Rock Point with 3 dogs in the car and a plan to see what kind of birds were hanging about. Bird watching education started early with old bird books and my own pair of binoculars. For me, there was nothing like spotting a bird and correctly identifying it before he did. His quick smile of pride and an engulfing bear hug still stay with me to this day. On one of our bird-watching trips, we went to Old Cut Bird Banding Station at Long Point and helped take the birds out of the mist nets during spring migration. We both loved the close contact of the birds and the methodical nature of studying them, but I could see that Dad was truly taken with bird banding. After that, he volunteered at several bird banding stations before opening his own at Rock Point. It was not a schedule for everyone. And on the days that I went with him, it was a 4 a.m. wake-up call with lots of coffee, a flashlight, and the ability to walk quickly down small, unpredictable paths between the mist nets. For your efforts, you were rewarded with a dazzling sunrise and the chance to untangle beautiful birds from the mist net before transporting them to the banding station where they would get a leg band and have all their important information reported. It was a painstaking process with a lot of paperwork and knowledge needed. Dad never seemed to mind. He loved to learn new things about birds and went to various conferences around the world to increase his knowledge. Dad's birding skills also increased, and he was able to identify most birds by sound while doing a bird census of the Rock Point area. Dad became a master bird bander, and he loved teaching others how to be bird banders too. He taught people from all over Canada, Ireland, Spain, Switzerland, and many more. As a result, we received many messages from these bird banders telling us how influential he was not only to their bird banding knowledge, but to their lives. Even in his last year at Grandview Lodge, Dad loved to watch the bird feeders that my mom dutifully filled for him and was on the lookout for the different birds of the season. In addition to local birds, we also loved to travel, and it was always a thrill to see new birds in places like Britain, Dominican Republic, and the Everglades in Florida. Besides bird watching, my dad also loved to snorkel, and I have many memories of exploring coral reefs side by side as we took in the beauty all around us. Growing up with my dad meant that he was willing for me to pursue my passions as well, and in this case, it was horses. First, it was Western lessons at a local barn, then it was English lessons early on Saturday mornings in Pelham, then it was boarding our horses at a Dumble barn, and finally we had the horses at our house. Dad rode both Western and English, but finally found his best fit driving Ocean, Dad's horse, in a Mennonite-made 2-seat buggy, where Mom and Allie could come along while I rode Caleb, my horse, all along the back roads of Dunville. As a teacher, he had many years when he really enjoyed his class. Some of his favorites was his time at Canberra School, where he named his room the Bear's Den. He would tell the students that he either could be a teddy bear when things were going well, or he could be a grizzly bear when they were misbehaving. He loved teaching at a country school and would have all the students build bluebird boxes and tell them that he would pay them $5 if he could confirm they had a bluebird living in the box. My dad had a sharp wit and was quick with creative quips. He loved British humor, and we spent many a Saturday night snuggled in bed laughing ourselves silly watching breadcrumbs. Dad also loved nothing better than a water fight, which at times ranged so far that the entire bedroom and hallway paid the price. This playfulness extended to the pool as well, with all the regular pool kids, Aaron, Heather, Shannon, Ian, and at times the rest of the cousins, Melissa, Amanda, and Lucas. We had a little blow-up dinghy that was mainly used as a game of flip the boat, with all the kids shrieking with glee as the boat dumped them into the pool. I have very fond memories of long summer days spent in the pool with all the pool kids and with Dave and Joe, Caroline, and Paul, sitting in lawn chairs, idly slapping mosquitoes while waiting for the barbecue to heat up. Along with birds, Dad has always loved dogs, and at one point he bred Cavalier King Charles Spaniels. During these years, the home was awash in dogs and puppies, much to Allie's delight. Dad connected to a few of those dogs, notably to Emily and Benny. Later, he literally found Molly dumped and dirty in a corner outside my Omanopa's house. She turned out to be the large dog he had always wanted, and they became inseparable. My dad never did anything halfway. It was never one dog or 4 birds. It usually morphed quickly into a lot of somethings. From aviaries to fish tanks, to snakes, to ducks, to hedgehogs, to a pig named Barney, and a parrot named Star. My dad was a person who followed his passions. Life was never dull, since you never knew what interest Dad wanted to pursue next. But it was hard to deny how much joy he would have from a rare bird banded at the station, or successful breeding of some Australian birds, or the appeal of a new batch of puppies, or a successful trail ride with the horses. During Marcel's exchange to Dunville, my dad noticed that Marcel was not being shown any of the areas in Ontario. He took it upon himself to take him and the rest of the family on a trip to Algonquin, Point Pelee, and St. Jacobs. Dad was a generous tour guide, and he loved to show the nature areas to fellow travelers. When I was dating Marcel during university, my dad, Mom, and Allie went with me to visit Marcel and his family during Christmas. We made it to the last night of the Christmas market, and it was magical, with roasted sugar almonds and glühwein. After we went to the Christmas market, Dad broke out the Dutch Blitz game, which everyone loved, and we played most nights of the Christmas visit. My dad loved his grandchildren and was absolutely overjoyed to become a grandpa. He loved to show Andreas the birds at the banding station and to hear that Lorena had taken an interest in birds and had her very own bird book. When he would come over and visit, he would sit with the babies on his chest, which gave me a moment to have a break. As the kids got older, he liked to read books to Lorena and to play board games with Andreas. He came to many of Andreas' soccer games and loved to watch him play. He played mini putt with the kids on summer outings and liked to take them on the sky wheel at Niagara Falls. My dad lived a full life, and as he said in his last few weeks, I've had a good run. As his daughter, it was an adventure, and I am grateful for many things. I'm grateful that he has instilled in me a love of birds and nature. I'm grateful for all the trips and world travels that gave me perspective and a love of new experiences. I'm grateful for the time with him taking care of horses and for all the trail rides together. I'm grateful that he sent me on a trip to Germany after Marcel's exchange so that I could decide for myself if Marcel was the one. I'm grateful for the talks, the encouragement, and the love. I will be thinking of you, Dad, every time the tundra swans migrate back in the spring, when the barn swallows flit and fly in the summer, and when the ruby-crowned kinglets fly through in the fall, and lastly, when the dark-eyed juncos come to stay in the winter. I wish you rest, I wish you peace, and I wish you all the birds and dogs that you can handle. I love you, Dad. Thanks for everything.
Thank you, Sabrina, and thank you to everybody who spoke such meaningful and personal tributes. As that is the conclusion of our official service today, we're going to culminate, and I will ask you to direct your attention to the back wall with a memorial video, and following that, there will be a time of fellowship and refreshment. Thank you.